Hello, and welcome to another show. Today's topic is a bit more serious than usual. We will be discussing political assassination attempts within the past 50 or 60 years in light of the recent assassination of Charlie Kirk. First, let's discuss a timeline of assassination attempts. On December 11, 1960, Richard Paul Pavlik plans to crash into the car of President-elect John F. Kennedy and blow it up with dynamite, but changes his mind when he sees the president's wife and children with him. Pavlik is still intent on carrying out the plot at a later date, but he is arrested before he could do so. The movie The Manchurian Candidate is released about an attempt by a brainwashed Raymond Shaw to assassinate a presidential candidate. Following the release of this film, assassination attempts increase 100-fold. Before the 1960s, there were sporadic attempts on political leaders, such as in 1933, 1935, and 1950. But in the trying and turbulent days of the 1960s and up until 1975, there were many assassination attempts. But this trend would slow down, begging the question, could there actually be some kind of brainwashing technique that was used in this era? Let's take a brief look at these attempts during this time.
Did you kill the president?
No, I've not been charged with that. In fact, nobody has said that to me yet.
My anger at the American people's reaction to the loss of the Palestinians and the Arab.
No, I've got some Freedom of Information papers in there saying there's a Raul San Diego or something in New Orleans is supposed to be a...
I was just getting depressed. I had a depression that was building and building, and that led to some delusions, and that's what led to the shooting.
On November 22nd, 1963, President Kennedy is shot and killed during a motorcade in downtown Dallas. Texas Governor John Connally is also wounded. 2 days later, Lee Harvey Oswald, who is in custody and suspected of the assassination, is killed by nightclub owner Jack Ruby while being transported by police. A commission, led by Supreme Court Chief Justice Earl Warren, will subsequently declare that Oswald was the lone assassin.
Martin Luther King dedicated his life to love and to justice between fellow human beings. He died in the cause of that effort.
On March 29, 1968, Martin Luther King went to Memphis, Tennessee in support of the black sanitation workers. On April 3rd, King addressed a rally and delivered his I've Been to the Mountaintop address at Mason Temple. King's flight to Memphis had been delayed by a bomb threat against his plane. King was booked in room 306 at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis. King was fatally shot by James Earl Ray at 6:01 p.m., Thursday, April 4th, 1968, as he stood on the motel's second-floor balcony. After emergency surgery, King died at St. Joseph's Hospital at 7:05 p.m. On June 5th, 1968, presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy is shot and killed by Sirhan Sirhan in the kitchen of the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles after winning the California primary. The murder, which came only 2 months after the fatal shooting of the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. in Memphis, pushed the Democratic Party toward a crisis at its political convention that summer. On March 15, 1972, Arthur Bremer shoots Democratic presidential candidate George Wallace in Laurel, Maryland, leaving Wallace paralyzed. 3 other people are wounded. Bremer had previously sought to shoot President Richard M. Nixon, but was unable to get close enough to do so. On February 22, 1974, Samuel Bick hijacks a DC-9 with the intention of crashing it into the White House to kill Nixon, but he is fatally shot by local police before the plane could take off from Baltimore-Washington International Airport. On September 5, 1975, Lynette Squeaky Fromm, a supporter of mass murderer Charles Manson, tries to shoot President Gerald Ford in Sacramento, and her gun misfires. On September 22, 1975, Sarah Jane Moore shoots at Ford in San Francisco, but misses. On February 9, 1965, Malcolm X told interviewer Gordon Parks that the Nation of Islam was actively trying to kill him. On February 21, 1965, he was preparing to address the OAAU in Manhattan's Audubon Ballroom when someone in the 400-person audience yelled, "The N-word, get your hand out of my pocket!" As Malcolm X and his bodyguards tried to quell the disturbance, a man rushed forward and shot him once in the chest with a sawed-off shotgun. The other 2 men charged the stage, firing semi-automatic handguns. Malcolm X was pronounced dead at 3:30 p.m. shortly after arriving at Columbia Presbyterian Hospital. The autopsy identified 21 gunshot wounds to the chest, left shoulder, arms, and legs, including 10 buckshot wounds from the initial shotgun blast. One of the gunmen, Nation of Islam member Talmadge Hayer, also known as Thomas Hagen, was beaten by the crowd before police arrived. Witnesses identified the other gunmen as Nation members Norman 3 times Butler and Thomas 15 times Johnson. All three were convicted of murder in March 1966 and sentenced to life in prison.
I didn't do it, I swear. I'm innocent.
First, let's discuss Lee Harvey Oswald. Lee Harvey Oswald is one of the most notorious figures in American history, best known as the alleged assassin of President John F. Kennedy. His life, actions, and the controversy surrounding his involvement in the assassination continue to spark debate and speculation decades after the event. Oswald was born on October 18, 1939 in New Orleans, Louisiana. Raised in a working-class family, Oswald experienced a tumultuous childhood marked by frequent relocations and family instability. He dropped out of school at age 17 and soon after enlisted in the United States Marine Corps, where he served from 1956 to 1959. In 1959, Oswald traveled to the Soviet Union and attempted to defect, expressing his dissatisfaction with American society and politics. He lived in Minsk for about 2 years, married a Russian woman named Marina Krusakova, and eventually returned to the United States in 1962 with his wife and daughter. After returning, Oswald struggled to find stable employment and became involved in political activism, including supporting pro-Cuba organizations. His ideological leanings and erratic behavior were noted by both his acquaintances and law enforcement agencies. November 22, 1963, President John F. Kennedy was shot and killed in Dallas, Texas. Oswald was arrested later that day and charged with the murder of Kennedy, as well as a Dallas police officer, J.D. Tippit. Oswald denied all charges and claimed he was a patsy. 2 days later, Oswald was shot and killed by nightclub owner Jack Ruby while being transferred between jails, an event that was broadcast live on television. The official investigation, known as the Warren Commission, concluded that Oswald acted alone in assassinating Kennedy. However, numerous conspiracy theories have persisted, suggesting possible involvement by other individuals or groups, including the Mafia, the CIA, and foreign governments. These theories have contributed to Oswald's controversial legacy and the continuing fascination with the case. Lee Harvey Oswald remains a central figure in American history, his actions still debated and scrutinized. The assassination of President Kennedy marked a turning point in U.S. history, leading to widespread distrust in government institutions and spawning countless books, films, and investigations. And I've read so many books on the Kennedy assassination and watched quite a few documentaries as well. And my own take on Oswald is that he wasn't some right-wing extremist. I mean, would a right-wing extremist ever live in Russia, especially when Russia was communist? No, I think it was kind of like a lone nut just trying to seek attention. At one time, he's pro-Cuba. At another time, he's anti-Cuba. And he doesn't seem to know exactly where he stands on these issues. He also took a shot at a general just a few days before the assassination of Kennedy. So I think no matter who the president was, if Nixon had won that election, had been in Dallas that day, I think Oswald would have assassinated Richard Nixon. It didn't matter which president it was, it's just the fact that it was a president. At least that's my interpretation of the events and looking at what I see of the man, Lee Harvey Oswald. Another question is begged, was James Earl Ray framed, examining the controversy surrounding the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. The assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on April 4, 1968 in Memphis, Tennessee remains one of the most significant and tragic events in American history. James Earl Ray, a career criminal, was arrested and eventually pleaded guilty to the murder, receiving a 99-year prison sentence. However, over the decades, numerous questions have arisen about whether Ray was truly responsible or if he may have been framed. Let's look at the official account. According to the investigation, James Earl Ray escaped from prison in 1967 and later purchased a rifle, which was found near the scene of Dr. King's assassination. Ray was apprehended in London 2 months later, extradited to the United States, and pleaded guilty to avoid the death penalty. He later recanted his confession, claiming he was innocent and had been set up. Let's look at some of the arguments suggesting that Ray was framed. Ray's recantation after his conviction. He repeatedly claimed that he was not the shooter and had been manipulated by a mysterious figure he called Raoul. Some questions about the evidence. Some critics argue that the forensic evidence was circumstantial and that the prosecution relied heavily on Ray's confession rather than physical proof. Looking at the conspiracy theories, various authors and researchers have suggested that government agencies or other groups may have orchestrated the assassination, using Ray as a scapegoat. And most importantly, the King's family position. Members of the King family have expressed doubts about Ray's guilt and supported investigations into possible conspiracies. Now let's look at some arguments against the framing theory. Ray's actions, Ray's escape from prison, purchase of the murder weapon, and flight from the country are seen by many as indicators of guilt. Lack of substantial evidence. Despite years of investigation, no conclusive evidence has emerged to prove that Ray was framed or that a broader conspiracy existed. And the investigative findings. The House Select Committee on Assassinations concluded in 1978 that Ray was the shooter, but acknowledged the possibility of a conspiracy. The question of whether James Earl Ray was framed remains unresolved in the public imagination. While there are arguments and suspicions suggesting he may not have acted alone or may have been set up, the majority of official investigations have found insufficient evidence to exonerate him or confirm a conspiracy. The debate continues, fueled by lingering doubts, the complexity of the case, and the historical significance of Dr. King's assassination.
The Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination.
Say that he was going to send 50 Phantom jets to Israel to deliver nothing but death and destruction on my countrymen. That seemed as though it were a betrayal.
Now let's look at Sirhan Sirhan, an overview of the life and infamous role in American history. Sirhan Bishara Sirhan is a Palestinian-Jordanian man best known for his conviction in the assassination of United States Senator Robert F. Kennedy in 1968. The event profoundly impacted American politics and society, marking one of the most significant moments in 20th century history. Looking at his early life, Sirhan was born on March 19, 1944 in Jerusalem, then under British administration. He was raised in a Christian family and lived through the turmoil and violence of the Arab-Israeli conflict. In the 1950s, Sirhan immigrated with his family to the United States, settling in California. His formative years were marked by cultural adaptation and personal struggle. On June 5, 1968, Senator Robert F. Kennedy was shot at the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles, shortly after delivering a speech celebrating his victory in the California Democratic primary. Sirhan Sirhan was apprehended at the scene and later charged with first-degree murder. During the investigation and subsequent trial, Sirhan claimed that his anger over Kennedy's pro-Israeli stance was a motivation factor for the crime. The assassination shocked the nation, occurring just 5 years after President John F. Kennedy's assassination, and contributed to the sense of instability and crisis during the 1960s. Sirhan's trial began in early 1969. He was found guilty and sentenced to death, which was later commuted to life in prison when California abolished the death penalty. Sirhan has remained incarcerated since then, occasionally seeking parole, but consistently denied due to the gravity of his offense and continued controversy surrounding the case. Over the years, the assassination has been subject of numerous conspiracy theories, with some questioning whether Sirhan acted alone or if others were involved. Debate continues among historians, legal experts, and Kennedy's family members about the events and evidence surrounding the case. The assassination of Robert F. Kennedy by Sirhan Sirhan had a lasting impact on American politics, affecting the course of the 1968 presidential election and altering the trajectory of progressive movements in the United States. Sirhan remains a controversial figure, symbolizing both the volatility of the era and the enduring questions about justice and political violence. Sirhan Sirhan's life, actions, and the consequences of his crime continue to resonate in discussions about political violence, the American judicial system, and the complexities of historical truth. His name is forever associated with a pivotal moment in American history, the tragic loss of Senator Robert F. Kennedy. Now let's look at John Hinckley Jr., his background and historical overview. John Hinckley Jr. is an American man who gained national attention in 1981 after attempting to assassinate U.S. President Ronald Reagan. His actions and subsequent trial contributed to lasting discussions about mental health, criminal responsibility, and security for public officials in the United States. John Warnock Hinckley Jr. was born on May 29, 1955 in Ardmore, Oklahoma. He grew up in a well-to-do family and spent much of his youth in Texas. Hinckley attended Texas Tech University but did not graduate. Throughout his late teens and early adulthood, he struggled with mental health issues, including depression and obsessional thoughts. On March 30, 1981, John Hinckley Jr. attempted to assassinate President Ronald Reagan outside the Washington Hilton Hotel. Armed with a revolver, he fired 6 shots, injuring President Reagan and 3 others. Press Secretary James Brady, who got the worst of that attempt, Secret Service agent Timothy McCarthy, and police officer Thomas Delhanty. Hinckley's motivation was famously linked to a desire to impress actress Jodie Foster, with whom he developed an unhealthy obsession after watching the film Taxi Driver. His actions drew public attention to the phenomenon of celebrity obsession and its potential dangers. Hinckley was charged with multiple offenses, including attempted assassination of the president. During his trial, Hinckley was found not guilty by reason of insanity. He was committed to a psychiatric hospital, where he remained under varying levels of supervision for decades. The trial led to widespread debate and controversy over the use of insanity defense in the American legal system. It also prompted significant changes in federal and state laws regarding the treatment and commitment of individuals found not guilty by reason of insanity. In the years following his commitment, court hearings periodically reviewed Hinckley's mental state and the conditions of his confinement. In 2016, a federal judge ruled that Hinckley could be released from institutional psychiatric care, provided he meets strict conditions and continue to receive mental health treatment. Since his release, he has lived with his mother and maintained a low public profile, occasionally appearing in the media and pursuing artistic interests, such as music and art. The case of John Hinckley Jr. remains one of the most significant criminal cases in modern American history. It has continued to influence discussions on mental illness, criminal justice, and the protection of public officials. The trying and turbulent times of the 1960s and early 70s seems to be making a comeback. Donald Trump has been the target of multiple assassination attempts during his presidential campaigning and as president. The earliest known attempt occurred at a campaign rally shortly before he secured the nomination of the Republican Party in the 2016 presidential election. Throughout Trump's first term in office, he was targeted but unharmed at several failed assassination attempts. The most serious incident took place at a Pennsylvania campaign rally in 2024 while Trump was running for a second term. The attempt resulted in 2 deaths, that of the would-be assassin and a spectator. Trump was injured by a bullet that struck his right ear, the only injury sustained in these attempts. Another attempt on Trump's life occurred in Florida in September 2024. It was thwarted by the Secret Service, resulting in no casualties and only the suspect being shot at. On March 12, 2016, 22-year-old Thomas DeMassimo was arrested and charged with disorderly conduct as he broke over the police barricade and attempted to rush the stage during a rally in Dayton, Ohio. He was tackled by Secret Service. On July 26, 2016, DeMassimo was sentenced to 1 year probation. There were numerous other attempts as well, but they all failed. The closest that came to succeeding was on July 13, 2024. Thomas Matthew Crooks fired 8 shots from an AR-15 style rifle at Trump. While speaking at a rally near Butler, Pennsylvania, Trump was shot and wounded in his upper right ear before dropping to the ground and being shielded by the Secret Service. The assassination attempt prompted the resignation of the director of the Secret Service, Kimberly Cheadle, as well as ongoing investigations into the incident as a political assassination attempt, as well as an act of domestic terrorism. And finally, on September 15, 2024, Ryan Wesley Routh was sighted wielding a rifle in bushes at the Trump International Golf Club in West Palm Beach, Florida. While Donald Trump was golfing at the club, a Secret Service officer shot at Routh, who fled and was apprehended while driving away. The FBI was investigating it as an assassination attempt. Authorities later confirmed that Routh did wish to kill the former president. An incident on April 7, 2025, revealed that Routh was planning the assassination attempt as early as February 2024 with an accomplice who called himself Ramiro, who lived in Mexico. Routh's trial began on September 8, 2025, and he was found guilty on all counts on September 23rd. Routh faces life in prison, and his sentencing is scheduled for December 18, 2025. Let's look at the recent assassination of Charlie Kirk. On September 10, 2025, Charlie Kirk, an American right-wing political activist, was assassinated while addressing an audience on the campus of Utah Valley University in Orem, Utah. The outdoor event was the first stop of the season for the American Comeback Tour, a speaking and debate series planned by Turning Point USA, a conservative organization he co-founded. While engaging with an audience member about mass shootings in the United States, Kirk was fatally shot through the neck and pronounced dead later at a nearby hospital. Investigators stated the gunman was positioned on the roof of a building approximately 142 yards away from where Kirk was speaking. 22-year-old Tyler James Robinson. He surrendered to the offices of the local sheriff the next day. Prosecutors charged Robinson with murder on September 16th and announced they would seek the death penalty, alleging the attack was politically motivated. The assassination was highlighted as an instance of increasing political violence within the United States and was condemned by national and foreign leaders. Video footage of the shooting spread rapidly on social media, and reactions included heartfelt messages, anguish about the political climate, and sharply partisan commentary. U.S. President Donald Trump, members of the Republican Party, and other conservative figures blamed members of the Democratic Party and left-wing or liberal beliefs before a suspect was in custody or a motive was identified. Tyler James Robinson was recognized by his parents from news images of the alleged shooter. They convinced him to come to their residence in Washington, Utah. Robinson told them he was fearful of being shot by police or a SWAT team being sent to his parents' house. They contacted a member of their Mormon congregation, a retired detective who had previously worked for the Washington County Sheriff. The retired detective called the sheriff and made arrangements for Robinson to surrender. He and Robinson's father then drove Robinson to the sheriff's office the evening of September 11th, and Robinson was taken into custody without incident. Governor Spencer Cox said the next day that Robinson was the only suspect. The manhunt had lasted 33 hours. In looking at these assassinations and assassination attempts, one must wonder about the mind of the assassins. What was going on in their heads? James Earl Ray, did he really commit the crime? He didn't seem capable of such an act when you look at his life and capabilities. And we're not going to go into that here in this document. You can look it up yourself on Wikipedia or even on YouTube. John Hinckley Jr. was clearly a nut job. He blamed his attempt on Ronald Reagan on actress Jodie Foster, who he had never met, but had a major crush on, and apparently tried to meet her several times. That was strange and tragic. Lee Harvey Oswald, who was neither right-wing nor left-wing. He was just seemingly an attention-getter, in my personal view. If you disagree with that, you can tell me in the comments section below. But like I said before, why would a right-winger want to live in communist Russia in the 1960s? That did not make any sense. I think he just shot for the purpose of gaining notoriety for the event. Now, Sirhan Sirhan had a clear motive for his assassination of Robert F. Kennedy. He felt that Kennedy betrayed the Palestinian government when he supported Israel. Then we come to Tyler Robinson. Apparently, Robinson did not agree with Kirk's teachings on relationships with transsexual people. It seems the more controversial the figure, the more assassination attempts there are on that person. And I want to say, in light of all the stuff that's come out about Charlie Kirk recently and Donald Trump, calling them rhymes with ROTC, I can't say that word with the N-word with the algorithm on YouTube, but you call these people fascists and ROTCs and all these names, and those who who aren't mentally stable, it just fuels the fire, and these things should be stopped. Charlie Kirk has been accused of being anti-gay when gay commentators such as Dave Rubin, a political commentator on YouTube, support Charlie Kirk, even though Kirk did not believe in homosexual relations personally. He believed in the one man, one woman of the Bible. That's fine and dandy, but he also came out and supported those who disagreed with him. And it seemed like he entertained open discussion at his rallies. If you watch the man himself and stop listening to his detractors, he wanted open discussion about these beliefs. This is me talking off the top of my cuff right now because, and that's why I'm kind of babbling a little bit. But please bear with me. I just think people need to be more responsible. This is irresponsible, people. Whether you support Charlie Kirk or not, I try not to influence anyone's political beliefs on my channel. That's not what my channel's about. But here, I just feel the need to speak out that you can't come out and say these vile things without any kind of proof. And you can't take a person's words out of context or half a statement. Films have been edited in the past to make people seem to be saying something that they aren't. We saw evidence of this during the Trayvon Martin trial when the question was edited, was he black? Referring to Trayvon Martin. They edited the question out and it made it look, the shooter, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, it made it look like the shooter was pointing him out for being black, when the fact is the person who was talking to him on the phone asked him about the person's race that he shot. And we can look at the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, The Running Man, where Schwarzenegger's words, the character he played, his words were taken out of context and only part of the speech was aired to the public to make him look guilty. And that's happening today. This happened with Charlie Kirk. And again, I don't want to influence your beliefs. If you support Charlie Kirk, more power to you. If you did not support Charlie Kirk, you did not agree with him, more power to you too, as long as you do not support the man who gunned him down, an unarmed man in cold blood from hundreds of feet away without that man's knowledge. As long as you do not support that man, you are entitled to your beliefs, of course. But if you supported that man, as I've seen on social media, and those people are losing their jobs because they come out cheering that man on, it's just my personal comments to you now. And I just can't see how anyone can glory in another human being shot, an unarmed human being, without that human being's knowledge from a huge distance away by a coward. And this from people who claim they support gun control. I guess they only support gun control if one of their own is shot. But anyway, that's my show for today. A look at presidential and political assassinations and assassination attempts throughout the past 50, 60 years or so. I hope you enjoyed the show. Let me know your thoughts on these assassinations and assassination attempts in the comments section below. Do you agree with my assessments on these characters? If I did not make an assessment on the characters, because I don't really know that much about them, and the assessments are just me formulating my own views. So if you have an assessment on whoever shot Malcolm X or some of these other assassination attempts, let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. And if I do another show like this, I'll mention them in the show. Until next time, this is Kevin Given on a more somber note saying, I hope you subscribe to my channel, click the little bell to stay informed, share this video as that will help me grow on YouTube as well, and check out my Carl Vincent Vampire Hunter franchise, which is in the comments section below. Until next time, this is Kevin Given saying, live long and prosper, may the force be with you, and keep reaching for the stars.